This is the final project for Group 13 for CNT4703. My name is Adrien Carlson. For the business requirements for our network, we had 3 routers which were all connected, 3 switches, 2 servers, 3 departments, Department A which had 10 hosts, Department B which had 60 hosts, Department C which had 200 hosts, and the remote office which had 5 hosts. And we also had an access control list, and we used Telnet to communicate to the router for the remote office, and the security that we used was port security. So for our scenario, a small startup company initially has 3 different departments, human resources, sales, and logistics, that need to be able to communicate with each other while also being able to access the data stored on the 2 servers. One server has employee information such as their name, address, etc., and the other server will house all information relative to the business that employees with specific credentials are authorized to access. An administrator will have Telnet access to be able to configure one of the routers remotely. Additionally, 5 employees will be located at off-site doing field work that will also require access to communicate with the 3 departments and servers. And here's a picture of our network design. Over on the left, we have our departments, Department A which had 10 hosts, and Department B with 60 hosts, and Department C with 200. And we have our switches in the middle, and our servers. And over here is our Telnet host to communicate to our remote office. And for our VLAN configurations, for our VLAN 10 for Department A, we had 10 hosts, and the IP range was 192.168.10.1 to 192.168.10.14, and our subnet was 255.255.255.240. And for VLAN 60, Department B, the number of hosts we had are 60, and the IP range was 192.168.60.1 to 192.168.60.62, and our subnet was 255.255.255.192. And for VLAN 200, Department C, the number of hosts was 200, the IP range was 192.168.200.1 to 192.168.200.254, and the subnet was 255.255.255.0. For our first server configuration, the IP address was 192.168.200.3, and the gateway for that was 192.168.200.1, and our subnet that we used was 255.255.255.0. Our server 2 configuration, the IP address was 192.168.200.4, and the gateway was 192.168.200.1, and the subnet that we used was 255.255.255.0. For router 1 configuration, we used hostname router 1, interface gigabit ethernet .0.10. We used encapsulation .1q10. The IP address was 192.168.10.1, and the subnet was 255.255.255.240. For interface gigabit ethernet 0.60, we used encapsulation .1q60. The IP address was 192.168.60.1, and then the subnet was 255.255.255.192. For interface gigabit ethernet 0.200, we used encapsulation .1q200. The IP address was 192.168.200.1, and the subnet was 255.255.255.0. And for the continuation of the router 1 configuration, for the serial 0 interface, we used the IP address 10.10.10.1, and the subnet was 255.0.0.0. And for the serial 01 interface, we used IP address 10.10.11.1, and the subnet was 255.255.255.0. And we used a RIP protocol for the router, and that network was 10.0.0.0. And then for the other departments, we used 192.168.10.0, and then 192.168.60, and then 192.168.200.0.
So now we're going to be moving on to the router 2 configuration. For the host name, we used router 2, and for interface G0, we have an IP address of 172.20.16.1 and a subnet mask of 255.255.255.224. We use auto for duplex and auto for speed as well. We have a router RIP protocol for the networks 10.0.0.0 and network 172.20.0.0. We also use line BTY04, which is virtual terminal to control telnet, where we enable the password, set the password, and the login. So the interface serial 0, we have a clock rate of 2 million and an IP address of 10.10.10.2 with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0, and we also put no shutdown. For the router 3 configuration, we used a host name of router 3. Interface G0 had an IP address of 192.168.15.1, a subnet mask of 255.255.255.248, and implemented an IP access group 1, auto for duplex and auto for speed. Interface serial 0 had a clock rate of 2 million and an IP address of 10.10.11.2 and subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. So continuing router 3 configuration, we implemented a control list to deny access to remote host 192.168.15.3, where we used the deny host, and we also permitted all others. For our switch 1 configuration, we have a host name of switch 1, and for the fast Ethernet interface 1, we used switch port access VLAN 10, switch port mode access, switch port security maximum 4, and switch port security MAC address 00A.1111.AB01. For interface fast Ethernet 2, we have switch port access VLAN 60 and switch port mode access. For the fast Ethernet interface 3, we used switch port trunk allowed VLAN up to 200 and switch port mode trunk. And then we did the same thing for interface fast Ethernet 04. Moving on to the switch 2 configuration, fast Ethernet 1 used switch port access VLAN 200 and switch port mode access. Interface fast Ethernet 2 used switch port trunk, which allowed VLANs up to 200 and switch port mode trunk. Switch port 3 configuration. So the host name was switch 3 and interface fast Ethernet 1 used switch port trunk, allowed VLAN 1 through 200 and switch port mode trunk. Interface fast Ethernet 2 used switch port trunk, allowed VLANs 1 through 200 as well, and switch port mode trunk. Interface fast Ethernet 3 used switch port access for VLAN 200 and switch port mode access. Interface fast Ethernet 4 used switch port access for VLAN 200 as well, and switch port mode access. Interface fast Ethernet 5 used switch port trunk, allowed VLAN 1 through 200 and switch port mode trunk. Finally, for the remote office configuration, we have IP host range 192.168.15.1 through 192.168.15.6. We use the gateway 192.168.15.1 and a subnet of 255.255.255.248. Also, host 3 192.168.15.3 had restricted access via the implemented access control list. Finally, here we have our references that we use for our presentation, and thank you for listening.